Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Yes, we were late, and it was not Deluded's fault this time because Deluded's not here. We were just chatting backstage, so I'm sorry, you
It was
guys.
actually my fault.
It took a couple of minutes, but we're here. Don't worry. I have James here from AFTV, and we're going to just have a little Sunday fun day conversation. Nothing too serious. But I did want to get you on the show because, listen, there could actually be some big managerial kind of like ring around the rosy this summer. I already kind of felt like maybe Ten Hag was on the chopping block. Eddie Howe might be on the chopping block, but if you had told me at the beginning of the season that Klopp would have announced midway through the season that he wasn't going to come back, I would have been like, no way. What was your feeling? Like, what was your like initial feeling when you saw that Klopp was like, listen, I'm done? How did you feel?
We've all seen that David Luiz celebration for Brazil when he's running into the crowd. He's sort of like, look, I mean, let's keep it like real for a second. Of course, I was happy from a like surface level Arsenal fan perspective. Good. This guy's been a problem. He's one of the Premier League greats. I really believe that. I know some Chelsea fans by putting him above Mourinho in terms of Premier League legacy, but we might get into that. But like, I rate him so highly, Jurgen Klopp, so highly. Um, and then the football fan takes over, and you go, okay, well, firstly, like, I hope he's all right. You talked a lot about energy and things like that, and a lot of people maybe just making assumptions. But firstly, there was that. Secondly, there's appreciating what a bloody great manager he is. I was about to say he is. He still is. They've got a second half of the season to go with a lot of reason to bring the energy now at Anfield. So that's another thing. And that crossed my mind too, that they're going to be more dangerous between now and the end of the year. And generally, I thought, I tried to sort of take in, like, is this that surprising? I mean, 9 years in a job's a long time, and he's given a lot to it. And Liverpool fans, I'm not saying this in like a negative way, but he's given a lot for one title. And that's not me saying, because in that's been a Champions League, loads of other trophies, and he could double a lot of those tallies, for trophies this year as well. And he's won it all, just the Europa League to add. But yeah, I sort of thought, actually, when you take it all in, it's not that surprising that he's on his way. What did you think?
I thought, wow, because I woke up
Mm,
and I had so many notifications, and I was like, is this fake? Like, is this a fake account saying this? Because I didn't want to, get done. But then I was like, wow, like he really is gonna go. And I, like you, I rate Klopp very highly. I think obviously his legacy is not as big as Pep's, but I
mm,
actually like him more than Pep. I think to me, he's a better coach because he has less to work with and does a lot with a lot less than what Pep has. And so I rate that highly because obviously being an Arsenal fan, what you want in a manager is somebody to be able to maximize resources because you don't have the backing that other teams do. And so
mm,
I admire the job that he's done. Now, I'm not saying that he's been dealing with scrubs. I'm not saying that, having Trent and Salah and Mane and these guys in your team and Allison is like having nothing. But I do think when you look at the differences in like what has and what Klopp has had, it's different.
yeah.
And Klopp's done a really, really good job. Now, as the Arsenal fan, I'm like, yes, thank you. Because
I know.
I'm tired
One
of it.
down.
I am. I'm done because it feels like every season we have to play them 3 or 4 times,
Mm,
and it's not easy. And we know as Arsenal fans that when you have a generational manager, special elite manager that has been at your club for a long time, it's hard to replicate that success again, especially in the short term. Manchester United fans will tell you that as well. It's not easy to find another Fergie, to find another Wenger, to find another Klopp. Um, and so I'm kind of like, are they gonna struggle a little bit? Like, is this gonna be a little bit of like a dip, having to not only bring in a new manager, but also to replace the Allisons and the Virgil van Dijks and Salah without Klopp? What is that gonna look like for Liverpool? Do you anticipate them having any sort of dip or having a little bit of a stutter step like we did, or do you think they'll be more prepared, seeing how difficult it was for Arsenal and Manchester United, who are still trying to figure it out, it feels like?
Yeah, I mean, I do anticipate that, but right off Liverpool at your own peril, because I thought them gutting their whole midfield this summer was going to be a problem, especially having not been great last season. But they've seemed to have done that pretty seamlessly. I still think I'm watching a Liverpool side that are slightly performing results wise a little better than their actual performances are. But I mean, you know, fine. Like they're fight. That's it. Depends which side you want to take. Sometimes it's they're finding a way to win when they're not brilliant and they're scoring loads of goals. So you can look at it in lots of ways, and they have been very good. Um, like Xavi Alonso's been linked in that it feels like he's getting a really good few years at Bayer Leverkusen, really good experience going up against Bayern Munich. Built a good side there. It does feel like the timing is perfect. Just having his couple of years there, having the title challenge at Leverkusen, and now can he go to Liverpool and kick on? I don't really see any other clear standout candidates. De Zerbi, I really rate De Zerbi, but I'm not sure. This is where Villa fans, right, where they were getting on me a few years ago, not a few years ago, a few months ago, and I was saying, because I rate Emery massively. I didn't put him in that top bracket, and I was saying, well, interesting that Emery's not been linked. Like, he's doing such an amazing job at Villa. Would Liverpool not be taking a look at someone who's doing that brilliantly? And I've always felt that they wouldn't, and it doesn't seem they are, but I might be wrong. And I do rate Emery super highly as well. I do see, yeah, there will be a dip, but like a dip from Jurgen Klopp levels might still be incredibly competitive. So I don't really know. I don't know.
I don't either. I don't want to get like I know there will be, but I just don't know, like you said, if it'll be as massive as it has been for us.
Mm,
I do think that he's a significant reason why they are where they are, but like you said, the timing is perfect to bring in somebody like a Xabi Alonso who, I'm not gonna sit here. I do feel like sometimes I'm not on the same bandwagon that other people where they use Xabi Alonso's half of a season form as a stick to beat Mikel with. Like, "Oh,
yeah.
look what he's elite. He's this." I'm like, "You guys, the Bundesliga is not the Premier League. He's doing a great job, but it's only half the season, and, what if he doesn't win anything?"
Well,
You never
also, but even if it was the Premier League, Arteta's done that. Like,
Yeah.
I know some people will go into Leverkusen spend. I don't know about all that. I don't know how much they spend compared to others. I don't know the task at hand compared to whatever. If you're talking about building a side that's competing in one of the big leagues, Arteta's done that. So
Mhm.
Xabi Alonso eclipses Arteta. Yeah, and for anyone who thinks Xabi Alonso's potential is higher, I'm not disagreeing. I say fine, fair enough. But for anyone who's kind of claiming it as fact, like, well, Alonso's elite and Arteta's not. Well, I mean, we'll see if he gets over the line, and then maybe that's a fair discussion. Even then, there's probably a debate around other factors. So I know what you mean. Like I'm not ready to be like, wow, Xabi Alonso's like the next massive thing in management, but he does look
Yeah.
very promising.
He really does, and so I agree with you. I think that he has a bright future, and I would kinda be interested in seeing him in the Premier League against Pep and Arteta and see what he's like. It would be funny to see, like, all of Arteta's best friends all in the Premier League. That'd be funny because
Yeah,
it just feels like everybody is weirdly connected to him in some way instead of in except for Ange, he's not really
yeah.
connected. But,
The school of
going back
Pepe.
exactly, and actually see who's the next guy up, because it was Xavi for a little bit. People are like, "Okay, it's Arteta, and now is it Xavi." It's everybody has their turn at being like, "Oh, the next Pep, the next Pep." There's
Yeah,
not gonna be another Pep, guys. You only get one of those, right?
yeah.
But in going back to Klopp a little bit, like, if you had to name, like, 3 things max that makes him special or different than other managers, what would be those 3 things? Like, if you like, for me, one of those things would be maximizing resources, because
Yeah.
I feel like he does a good job at that. If you could name a couple of those, what do you think is what would be the special cocktail or, formula for Klopp?
But I mean, that was the top one. That immediately when you said that was the first thing that came to my mind, because
Mhm.
I'm thinking you signed Hull's left back, you promoted an academy right back, you signed a failed Chelsea winger, and you signed a Southampton winger that, yeah, he did well at Southampton. No one was blown away by his time at Southampton, and you turn them into the most elite, you know, forces down the wing we've seen in the
Mhm.
Premier League. Well, maybe not the most, but up there.
Mhm.
So there's that. There is maximizing resources. Um, hmm. He does have good bounce back ability. Maybe not within a season, but across multiple seasons. Um, I feel like he had a few of his Jose moments of
Mhm.
kind of nearly falling out of the top four. Then he did have a season where he did fall out the top four, and it felt like they needed to sort of pull it all together. And then he followed that up with a quadruple charge, and now it could be on another quadruple charge.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. I listen to Liverpool fans talk about his relationship with the city and the people of Liverpool and all that. That's pretty special. That's being a real manager. That's not just being a first team coach. The manager captures the club and has the wider influence, on and off the pitch. So there's that. I'm trying to think. Maybe it'll come to me. I don't know if this is still true of his teams. I feel like he used to play Gegenpress football, and so we still kind of say it. But like, there is definitely an intensity about his teams that
Mm.
is still very unique. I'm not sure I've seen. We pressed really well last season. City have pressed very well under Guardiola for a long time, but when Liverpool were at their best doing that, it was like, whoa, they
Yeah.
just weren't. And for me, the Centurions are the best team I've ever seen, like entertainment wise. I know obviously the points tallies and everything, but then like Klopp's Liverpool, that's entertaining in a really different way. So I
Mhm.
don't know. Can you think of any others? Because I'm struggling for like
I
clear
feel like
points.
I feel like it's the he seems to be able to solve problems quickly.
Yeah,
The only
that's
time I
true.
feel like he wasn't able to solve a problem quickly was last season.
Yeah,
Um, that was the first time where I was like, "Ooh, he's really struggling to figure this out." Like, they're but I also think they just naturally went through a slump after so many years of being so good, you get fatigued after a certain amount of time fighting against the same demon and not winning. I think you have to give them a lot of credit for
yeah,
continuously going up against City and failing and going again and going again and going again. So I think it was just more that than anything. But I think his problem solving skills are quite good, whether that's throughout the season or within a game. His
yeah.
in-game management is really, really good. They could look sluggish or like they're not quite clicking, and then they'll go into halftime, and then when they come out, it could be just like a little bit of a change, but they get the business done.
Agreed.
And I think that comes with like experience and really like he's top quality. Like you said, the getting the most out of what he has, the resources. Um, I think those are like the main 2. Now, if you could take any of those things, the intensity, the in-game management, the maybe connection with the fans and the city and all that kind of stuff, or getting the most out of resources, if you could give any of those to Arteta, which one of those would you choose?
The resources one
Hmm.
massively.
Yeah.
So I saw a great stat. I was like, no way is this true. But someone said something like the Liverpool recognised best 11 under Klopp, which I think started the Champions League final. So we know the back four with Matip for Van Dijk, Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho, and then the famous front three. That game started one game. That team started one game together under Klopp,
Yep.
and I was like, what? So there's always someone who had to come in midfield. Maybe they added something to the attack every now and again. It was Matip, but sometimes it was Gomez. Like uh, that's incredible to me. That is true, and I believe it came from an official account. Um, then that is absolutely outstanding. And the one thing I'd say about Arteta, where he's been more similar to Pep, is I feel like his footballing philosophy is give me the resources, and when I've got what I need, like I'll blow you all away. Like we'll have 50 points after 19 games, and it will
Mhm.
all take, and it will look brilliant. We'll be good going forward. We'll have a good defensive record. Blah blah. But you lose a couple of those pieces, and it feels like he's not able to just flip the script a little bit and do something else. So when Kieran Tierney left, so what kind of really annoyed me, and now, by the way, he has injury problems. I had no great problem with him going. But people were citing more what he doesn't invert. And I was like, why does he have to? Why can't Arteta drop the 8 into a double pivot? Why can't our left winger tuck in? And why can't Tierney just have the freedom of the left-hand channel, which he's done before at Arsenal with Arteta? And it's little things like that that I don't really understand from Mikel, why he can be so stubborn. Now, in fairness, it looks like in the 2 weeks off, when we came back and beat Palace, it actually looked like we had some different ideas. No, nothing drastic, but it definitely looked like White and Zinchenko a bit higher and wider and build up, which was good to see. Felt like Saka was picking up different pockets. And it
Mhm.
wasn't relentless. We stuck to our principles, but generally I was like, okay, this is good. Like, we're doing some different things. But I see Liverpool struggling, and Klopp goes, okay, cool, I'm going to invert Trent, but I'm not going to invert him the way you're all doing it. I'm going to just drop him between the centre backs and turn him into a quarterback. And it,
It
I think
works.
there are limitations to that, but it's working. Look where they are. So that's the big thing. I think taking resources and just mixing it up a little bit. Arteta doesn't have to compromise on everything he does, but he can definitely tweak things. And I don't
Mhm.
think we get enough of that personally.
Yeah, we've spoken about the inflexibility, I feel like, and, when you don't have the perfect set, I feel like with Arteta, if he wants to be that type of manager where he's like, "Give me all the everything that I need, and then I can make it work." I'm not sure how well that's gonna work at Arsenal because we just don't have the same resources as, like a City. And that's why, when you make decisions like the Havertz one, it's really quizzical because you're like, okay, it didn't really solve any of our problems. You're getting what you want, but are you actually maximizing what you have? Are you making the right decisions? You're going to bat for certain players that maybe we didn't need. And so I think, yeah, that's the main thing to me is Klopp can get a lot out of what he has. And I felt like Arteta last season got almost everything he could out of that group. This season, I'm feeling like I did in past seasons where I'm like, the bench isn't we're not quite getting enough out of the
Mhm.
bench. When we're in game, there doesn't seem to be like be able to change the tactics even just a little bit to get more like either we're gonna win the game or we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it kind of feels like. And there's just like a general, I feel like we're even like our better players, I don't feel like we're getting the most out of now, whether that's just their individual form or it's the way that we're setting up the team. I don't know. But moving forward now, I feel like, they've had a break. They've had only like what, 2 games this whole month or some nonsense. Like they haven't played that much football. I would expect them to be fresher. We can maybe stop talking about them being overplayed. And I
Mhm.
would love to see them start looking a little bit more energetic and free flowing and things like that. I don't know if we
Yeah.
will see it, but, if we take away the fatigue part, then I do expect the football to get better and for our players to start looking like themselves,
I do and I don't because one podcast where I don't talk about Kai Havertz. I have fears because
Yeah.
Havertz is still that left 8.
Okay.
And I've tried to be really, like, patient. We're trying something different. He's not playing it the way Xhaka did. It's cool, like, wait and see. And still half a season, some might say is too soon. I think it probably is, but my gut's just telling me, like, we don't look right because we haven't solved that left 8 position. Now, let me be fair to Kai. No one has taken that. Like, Smith Rowe's had the least opportunities. Vieira, I've seen the most promise, but he definitely feels like he's lacking something physically.
Mm,
Who else have we got? Rice has done it the best, so I don't know why he doesn't play Jorginho more. Trossard, it's just not happening there, and I think he's a really talented player. So, I agree. Like, I don't expect fatigue and all these things to be a problem, but I still think over the coming months, before the next international break, we're going to look tactically a little disjointed and a little, I don't know. So the big
yeah.
question is whether, like, Arteta's big vision for Havertz comes through in results. Like, maybe we'll never look as pretty as we did last year, but maybe, like, my word, the results will be good. And this is what I kind of keep saying to Arsenal fans as well. We really were top at Christmas. Wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
and in that 3-game run, I will stand by we should have won 2 of them. The performances, while I was critical of elements of it for sure, they were good enough to win the West Ham and Liverpool games. So we could be looking at, we could have played this weekend and we could be, I know, 2 points off the top. Now, I know ifs, buts, maybes, right? We also could have drawn with Man United if Rice didn't bang it in the 97th minute with a deflection. Like, I understand that,
Yeah.
but
No,
I
yeah.
just think I'm still yet to see something tactically that tells me, yeah, okay, like we can win this league. I was hopeful up until the Liverpool defeat, and then City winning at Newcastle, winning at Everton, having been
Yeah.
behind in both those games. I was like, yeah, they've just clocked it a bit. Both of us had a wobble at some point, and they've clocked it, and I don't think we have.
I feel like our wobble is just always so different than others. Like,
Mm,
um, I think Liverpool have only lost 1 game this season. Like, mind you, I agree with you. I don't think that this is like a fully baked Liverpool team. Like, I don't feel
yeah,
like I'm watching the team of before. I feel like I'm watching a team that has gaps in it, that has
mm,
holes in it, that kind of nicks results here and there. But again, they've only lost 1 game, and the 1 game that they lost, they probably shouldn't have lost it because there was a
yeah,
massive error in it against Spurs. So, what even with gaps in your team, gaps, holes, inconsistencies, injuries, I feel like we still have that weakness about us where we can do a 3 game on the bounce, not win, you know?
totally.
I feel like we have that in us, and I just wonder where that comes from because I feel like until we can fully get rid of that, we're not gonna win anything. Because again, like you said, everybody has a wobble, but it cannot be the case that you lose to West Ham, you lose to Liverpool, you lose to Fulham. You just can't do that because for me, December was very damaging in terms of our hopes for the league this year, um, because I just don't know if I believe that Arsenal will lose less games than everybody else based
Yeah,
on what I've seen in the past. So I don't
yeah.
where do you put that like, when we lose games in bunches, where do you think that comes from? Is that the manager not being able to figure out ways to stop the bleeding? Or is it just the players are not they don't have the mentality? Like, where does that come from? Because it felt like we kinda got rid of it last season, but it's kind of reared its ugly head again this season.
Yeah, I don't know.
Weirdly.
It's a really strange problem we have. Um, I don't know. Is it something tactically, and then like Arteta takes just a little too long to like actually accept that maybe something.
I
I,
kinda
I
feel
do.
like it might be that. That's
'Cause
what I lean towards, like, we are
yeah,
doing something that's obviously not working, we get away with it, we get away with it, we get away with it, and then it hurts us, but then we keep kinda doing it, but at the same time, like, Havertz didn't play in
yeah,
midfield against Liverpool,
yeah.
so it's not that.
And he didn't play the West Ham game, I don't think, because he was suspended. So like, yeah,
Right,
for all I've said there, like, he wasn't the problem.
yeah,
Well, I mean, he did miss a chance against Liverpool up front. I don't know. This is one of the great mysteries of the Arteta era. Like, I really don't know what the problem is and why. I think if you sometimes things are coincidence. Now, listen, there'll be a lot of coincidences, but sometimes you remember when we lost 3-0 to Palace in the Champions League running, the top
yep,
four spot running, and we lost Partey. No, and we lost Tierney. And I remember in every preview, this stuck in my head so much. I remember every Arsenal fan saying, don't take Xhaka out of midfield. Do not
mhm,
put him at left back. I don't care if he inverts and he's going to be in that area of the pitch anyway. Don't you dare do it because we've just lost Partey and we can't strip our whole midfield away. And he did it. And we lost. Like, I
mhm,
do think there are things with Arteta that's like, sometimes it's like you just shot yourself in the foot. Um, but
yeah,
then, but then I also am I contradicting myself because I said the West Ham and Liverpool performances were kind of good enough to win those games. So maybe also it's just the players. Maybe it's psychologically the players
mhm,
just do like when they're not. Maybe they struggle to just come back out of it. And I think early last season they did a good job with that. But then we drew at Liverpool, then we drew at West Ham, then we drew at Southampton, and at the time they were basically 3 losses. So there's that
yeah.
too. It's weird. I really can't put my finger on why they just come all in one big cluster.
Yeah,
Three
I
of
don't
them.
I don't really it's so strange, and you're right that you basically could call those 3 draws, 3 losses on the bounce still. And, I was talking about this earlier, when I was recording a podcast earlier, and it could just be as simple as the
There
thumbs
you
up.
go.
It could just be as simple as the pressure is just a lot, and when
Mhm.
we're under pressure, we don't deal with it well. Now, that's definitely something that needs to change. I don't know if it's just a young team thing, but it's kind of an Arsenal thing where you're under pressure and you don't perform. It's been
Yeah.
an Arsenal thing for a long period of time. So I'm not sure how we get out of it. It's hard because sometimes I feel like, oh, the players are letting the manager down. But then there's sometimes where I'm like, yeah, but does the mentality come from the manager? Is it just the players? So it's a difficult one. So we'll go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, sorry, something just popped into my head, right? So you were asking about things I love about Klopp, and actually, one of the things I didn't say is that
Mhm.
he seems to exude this unbelievable belief in his whole squad. Like, here you go,
Mm,
academy players. Yes, the Emirates FA Cup, and you're coming on. Like, good luck. And clearly, they were good enough. I mean, Bradley's looked good, and I forget the other who came on and did well. But he just has this belief, like whoever Barcelona semi-finals, Anfield, Firmino, and Salah out, Origi, Shakira, you got this. Like, and his ability to kind of believe so much in everyone and everyone to feel like they're a part of it, even if they're clearly not a first teamer, I think carries them a long way. Now, why am I mentioning this now? Because I feel like when Arteta has maybe lost a game or maybe the performances haven't been great, we've won a few, and then that defeat's come. I don't think Arteta has exuded that confidence in a lot of other squad players that when he's needed to call on them, there's like a genuine belief that we feel as fans, that the manager feels, that the player coming in feels that, yeah, cool, we're having to change something
mhm,
and we're going to be fine. I've not seen enough of that. Again, last season, there was more of that. In Zinni's absence, Tierney would invert and do a decent job, or Tommy would come in, or whatever. Eddie coming in for Jesus. Like, that's one of the few occasions where the fans were like, oh no, like Eddie's going to come in for Jesus. And listen, he did a job for a month or two before Trossard became that false nine. Like, and that was, it felt very fueled by Arteta's belief in him. So
mhm,
when you're having games like Fulham away, where okay, Kivior's not a left back, okay, inverting doesn't really come so naturally to him. But like, when have we seen Arteta, who signed this guy for 25 million a year ago, really go, yeah, I really believe in him? Like, he took way too long in the run in to play him last season, and then when he came in, he did well. And even if he's coming at left back, okay, we don't look as fluid. Okay, cool. Why does that mean we have to lose the game? Why does it mean we have to play so badly? Like, it's these kind of things that, for me, with Arteta, like Reece Nelson, you gave him a new deal. Okay, cool. He's profile-wise, the most close to Martinelli, and yet he's so reluctant to make that change in a game. So
yeah.
I think that's a big part of it, that when we are a little bit in the mud and we need to drag ourselves out of it, it's kind of relying on like the 11, 12 he really believes in to do it. And then everyone else, like, okay, do a job. Like, and more than ever in the Premier League, you need everyone on that pitch firing for you.
Agreed. Like I've always questioned why it's the case that whenever we rotate, it's like, well, we're gonna lose. If it's more than two players, it's like,
Look at
either
the
the
cup
whole
games.
yeah, exactly, the cup games. And I'm just, because like RM is saying, like belief in his squad, Nelson and Kedia, anyone on the bench only gets on if we're trying to win a game. And I think
Yep.
there's never real like there's very little time in the team to get like a little run or a little bit of confidence outside of a desperate moment where Arteta almost like has to use you. There's never any like preemptive, like, okay, we're gonna lightly rotate or bring you in or whatever. And I think not playing a player also says a lot about what you believe, like what you think about the player. You don't
Yep.
have to sit there and say, I don't believe in you. All you have to do is in the run in, not play this player, until it's basically lost. And then they know, like, okay, well, we basically lost the league. Now you're playing me,
Hmm.
like actions speak a
Totally.
lot louder than a lot of other things. And so I get like a lot of people say, well, our squad is not that good. And I'm like, I don't think it's Man City levels, but what we get out from our squad players for me doesn't make sense. Like it
No,
does
totally
not
agree.
make sense. Like, and it doesn't matter who it is. Under Mikel Arteta, like fundamentally, like the squad players just it's almost like a separate group. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like that's why when Trossard comes in, it's like he's fighting for his life. It's like he's
Mhm.
drowning. He's like, I have to make an impression because I don't know when I'm going to get out here again. And you want that kind of desperation, but you don't want him shooting from outside the box, and taking bad touches like he's a quality player. I don't understand why he looks so rattled. So
Yeah, I agree.
it's yeah, it's a mystery. There's so many mysteries, but you're right. One of the things that Klopp does really well is it feels like his whole squad is invested, even like the really not so great players.
Yeah.
Like they're still in and invested, and if they come in, they can do a job where there's a collective like like panic every time we feel like somebody's not going to be there. And I don't know if that's just because the players are not good enough or because we feel like they're not because Arteta doesn't use them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
agree.
some of these players are not that bad. But moving on to Arteta's new contract that's said to be in the works or already done or whatever. Everybody that I've had on the show, I've asked kind of like, would you give him a new contract? And what for you is a reason to be giving a manager a new contract? Does it have to be performance based or whether or not we get trophies, or is it just to ward off other teams? Like we said, there's going to be like a managerial merry-go-round probably in the summer. So you want to protect the manager that you've invested in. What are your feelings on this new deal? Is it a big deal that we're giving him a new one, or are you kind of just like, it is what it is, we're just protecting the asset kind of?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so here's where I stand, right? I am actually, as someone who has kind of largely really supported Arteta and likes him, I'm actually very willing to have the Arteta in out discussion. I really am. Like, I'm happy to entertain that. People who want him gone, I don't think it's crazy that they might want to see something different or change it up. It's not how I feel, but I totally think that that's actually a fair discussion. I actually think, though, the concept of whether we should give him a new contract, I, I personally think, kind of who cares? And what I mean by that is like, just give it to him because you can tear it up. Like, when have we ever heard a club go, can't sack him, just gave him a new contract? Like, that's never happened as far as I can remember in the history of like hiring, firing managers. Like, the contract length they've got left or whatever has rarely ever been a topic of discussion. Now, Nico's just replied, who cares? Yeah, I mean, who cares? And what I mean by that is like, yeah, just give him a new deal. Well, okay. Obviously, it's important. Obviously, like you want to. What I'm saying is, things at Arsenal are better now than they were when he took over. So, if you want to just give him the new contract, tie him down, I think that's a smart thing to do because you can always change your mind. I think what you don't want to do is leave it too late. Barcelona really tempt him. You realizing there's no one out there that you think has as good a potential. He ends the season strong, and who's out there that can build on this work? I don't know. So who cares is a bit flippant of me. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic. The point I'm trying to make is largely, of all things, in the kind of Arteta debate around his sort of position at the club, I think if he gets a new deal, I'll think Arsenal have done a sensible thing, but I won't feel like it's tied us down to like the next 3 years. This is it. Like it's Arteta now for 3 years, and that's what we're committing to. That's just not how football management's ever worked. As far as tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. I can't think of
No,
any situation where it's ever happened like that.
yeah, I think Arsenal's um tie to Mikel is not necessarily dependent on a new deal. I feel like whether they were giving it to him or not, I would feel the same, that Arsenal are very much so in with Arteta till the end.
Hmm.
I don't think there's any thought or feeling or whatever that they want to move away from him. I think they've invested a lot of time and a lot of energy in this manager, and they're banking on it reaping rewards. I don't necessarily feel like the new deal is like, yeah, we're in bed with him. I feel like we already know that. So maybe they're just
Sure.
tying him down because they know that maybe he could be tempted by a Pep leaving in the near future or whatever. I'm hoping, please go, or Xavi going or whatever.
Mm.
Now, um, I think there's obviously like some people that feel like he needs to win trophies and you should be rewarded with a new contract. Like, it should only be a reward. Um, and I just am like, well, like you said, like, you could just tear it up or whatever. But Arsenal do tend to be quite sentimental and like to stick on with things. Like, we're not a hiring, sacking team or club. Do you feel like we should be a little bit more flexible in terms of managers because it's not like there is another Arsene hanging around? Should Arteta be
Mm,
under more pressure? Should we be more willing to look at other options? Because it feels like for some of the fan base, it's like there is no one else but Mikel. But I kinda sit like I'm like, "Well, there are other options. I'm just not 100% sure that they're better, but would I be tempted to try them? Yes." I would be. What are your feelings on that? Do you think Arsenal should be a little bit more open to moving on managers quicker or trying different things? Or do you think sticking on with the Arsene type of model of, like, the manager is the
mm.
club and the club is the manager, like, that's what you would wanna see from your club?
Hmm. I think, like with players, you should be willing to, move on and upgrade and improve. Now, there's one manager, there's several players. I know it's different. Um, I'm trying to cast my mind back to when Jurgen Klopp left Dortmund
Mhm.
and Wenger in, Wenger out was a thing. And, you know, we all knew, or at least the way I remember it, I was like, "Please, I love you, Papa Vengs. Thank you for everything, but please go get Jurgen Klopp." Like,
Same.
I just knew. We all knew. Like, who didn't know? Doesn't make me some footballing genius. We all knew. We knew this guy was
Yeah.
unbelievable. Um, Now my question is there a Jurgen Klopp out there? Now we don't need to get a Jurgen Klopp. Like before everyone goes, "Oh, what? So this is Jurgen Klopp. We can't." Funnily enough, Jurgen Klopp is actually, but I imagine he'll be taking some time away. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying we need to find the next Jurgen Klopp because that's him and Pep generational managers. Um, but I think my bigger point is like Arsenal should always be tracking what De Zerbi's doing, tracking what Xabi Alonso's doing, tracking the work of other managers who are really succeeding and figuring out whether they fit the bill, figure out whether they are potential candidates and constantly weighing up whether they might be better than Arteta if Arteta doesn't reach a certain standard. I feel like we should always be looking at that. Always. That keeps Arteta on his toes. Um, that's just true. That's actually just standards. That's just wanting to win and like always looking for the best in class. With Arteta, I'd say that this question has come up a lot. It's probably because we lost 3 games in a row, and the question was like, would you sack him if he doesn't get top 4? And my answer is, listen, that's really bad, and you probably would have to. I'll be honest, like that's a lot of money to spend to get Champions League football once in 4 full seasons, 4.5 seasons. Like that wouldn't really be good enough, and one trophy having 4. Yeah, you can make a lot of reasons. But would I sack him if he doesn't win the title or doesn't win a trophy this season and maybe is like 6, 7 points off City? It's like, well, you could make a good argument for it, but I just need to be convinced of someone better.
Yeah.
Because then you're asking me, well, what's more likely? Arteta learns from the mistakes of this season and rediscovers what he did the season before, or completely new person who we've never seen in this role is the answer. Now, maybe this is it. But I cost benefit analysis. I don't know.
Yeah.
You break it down. I don't know. I'd be open to that discussion, but I really think like it's not just so easy to go. Yeah, we've not done it. Gone. It's like we're talking on the youngest manager in the league in his first job, who has got us to a standard that we were happy with. Could he get there again? And if someone else is more likely to do that, then you go with them. I'm not as attached to Arteta as people think. Like I really like him. He's done a great job. But it's not the Arteta way or no way. I just think the Arteta way could still do it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we've spoken about this so many times, like, if you're not ready to sack him right this moment or you're not screaming, like, with blood vessels coming out of your neck, people think you're, like, an Arteta sexual or something like that, like, you can't live without him or something. But then equally, if you even question him at all,
Mm.
people are saying that you're toxic, and I don't think it's I don't think it's that simple. It's not black or white. Um, Arsenal have always been a little bit reluctant to fire higher, fire higher, fire higher, and I understand that because you wanna build and you wanna see if it's actually gonna work, and so I'm okay with that, like, I get that. I just feel like I don't necessarily feel like you should always move on from a manager once everything falls apart. I think a good example of that is like everybody was cussing Bournemouth for sacking Gary O'Neill, but then they went out and got Areola and they're better. And it wasn't that obvious that they needed to move. They made a decision that was right for them. Now, their version that was probably their Klopp, because Bournemouth are not Arsenal. It's different. So I don't necessarily feel like it should be this taboo conversation, but I also think we need to be really careful because sometimes, be careful what you wish for. Like I would be a little bit afraid to go out there and get like a Xavi or De Zerbi, two managers that have never managed at like a massive club, and for them to crumble. I would be, you know?
Yeah, I hear it. The Bournemouth example is great, because it's not. It kind of like, people had things to say about it, then moved on very quickly.
Yeah.
But if you a lot, you're right. A lot of people were like, "Why have you got rid of Gary O'Neill?" And then he makes a great start at Wolves, and everyone's like, "Oh, laughing at Bournemouth." And it was just such lazy opinions because it was like, hold on. I actually spoke to Bournemouth fans, as a guy I know. He was like, look, like he did a great, like he kept us up, but no one loved him. No one loved the football. Um, and then I think a lot of pieces on Andoni Iraola and the great work he's done in Spain. And I was like, if everyone's just a little bit patient, like maybe we'll find out why they made this decision. And now we're seeing it.
Mhm.
And it's like, none of that. But what I love about what Bournemouth did was they're like, yeah, thank you. You did keep us up. And yeah, you did do a good job, but you are not what we need. What, like, there is someone out there who's better for us for what we want to do. Why can't Arsenal think in that way? But why can't Arsenal fans also not be open to the idea that, like, Arteta might improve? Arteta might improve and get to a level beyond where another manager is right now. Or maybe it's, I'm, Jez, I find it a really difficult conversation, because you're right. Like, it is,
It is tough.
people don't. You're so right. You lean one way or another, and like you're kind of labeled with being like completely on that side. It's like I'm not. I'm open to a lot of things. I don't think January the 28th, when we're in the Champions League knockout still, and we're third in the table, is the day for me to like make that decision on where I stand. And then we hypothesize. Well, but there's an infinite amount of possibilities for how this season can end. Like, if we finish fourth, 10 points off City, we got to the Champions League final. I don't know how I'm going to feel. That would be really poor, like, league performance. But he got us to the Champions League final. What if we finish eighth, but we win the Champions League? You can win, like
Mhm.
that would be horrendous in the league. But he won the Champions League, and that really, history tells you that's not sustainable. That the league, the year after, we're probably not going to win the Champions League, and there was something deeply wrong in the Premier League that we didn't address. There's so many different possibilities. So I'll cross the bridge when it comes. Do you feel a similar way? Like, it's
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime I'm not ready to put his head on a spike, it's just like, how we're doing, and I'm like, but the season's not done yet, so I don't know. Like until I have all the information, I don't know. Now, I've never been shy about having the conversation because I don't think it should be this taboo, and I don't think it should be this like yelling and screaming about it. Like I don't think it's that deep, but I still feel like there's still things to play for. I want to see how we finish. Like I said, context is so important. If we go out in the semifinals of the Champions League to Real Madrid, who again, Arsenal fans, I really do think like we underestimate how difficult the Champions League actually is, maybe because we haven't been in there in a long time. But when I watch teams even like Inter and Atletico, I think we'll struggle. So going out to Real Madrid is not a sackable offense, in my opinion. You have to give a good account of yourself. It's difficult. If we finish a couple points or a point behind Man City and they win it, the Premier League, I can't sit here and say that I'm gonna be like, "Get him out." I can't say I'm gonna do that. Um, but if there was, like, a very obvious manager that we could get that instantly makes this better, and I feel like is the right person, then I'd be advocating for that. but I am afraid to go backwards. Like, I'm afraid to go backwards, but equally, I'm afraid to lose the good players that we have waiting on Arteta to become world class, which I don't think he is yet. You
No,
know,
no.
that is
I
a
agree
genuine
with that.
fear of mine, that if we
And
don't win anything soon, we'll lose the players that we have, and Arsenal don't have the ability to go out and buy another Saliba, buy another Saka, buy another Martinelli. We don't have that. So it does feel like a race against time, but maybe for the club, it doesn't feel like that because they know the intentions of the players. I don't know.
yeah, maybe, and then there is all the behind the scenes stuff that we don't know
We
that
don't.
forms a part of that decision. Like, I'll give a good example. Right, a year ago, let's say these conversations were happening a year ago. What we don't know is that the groundwork had really begun for Declan Rice to come to Arsenal, and Mikel Arteta was at the forefront of all that, and that's all a big part of it. Like, a £105 million transfer is, in the works, and the guy who's like driving it, what, you're going to get rid of him? Like, these all there are all these things behind the scenes that we won't know either. And you're right. Like, I'm happy to have the conversation. What I mean by I kind of struggle with it is more. There's no conversation in the world of Arsenal that I feel more misunderstood with. Genuinely, like the Arteta kind of in out new contract. Is he good enough or whatever? Like, I don't know. I feel like I said, you lean one way or another more, and kind of people feel like all balance is lost. And I'm just on standby with it. I'm like, let's see how this ends. Let's see how this
Yeah,
season ends, and I will like give an informed opinion then. Right now, I just feel like there's way too. I will say one thing I feel very negatively about is our cup performances. Like,
period. Yes, I agree.
they are kind of, and I don't just mean playing well and losing to Liverpool. I mean, since he won the FA Cup, I think they've been borderline appalling. He got to a Carabao Cup semi final because the luck of the draw was phenomenal. He Well, that's it. I mean, what else has he done there? The Villarreal in the semi-finals, that was an appalling defeat. Knocked out the FA Cup by Southampton, Carabao Cup by West Ham. Liverpool and City have knocked us out 2 years in a row in the FA Cup, and it's kind of annoying that he didn't go more full strength at the Etihad. I felt like he needed to. I think that killed a bit of momentum for us in the season. Actually, the performance was good enough against Liverpool, but again, it was another. That has been a
Yeah.
big problem for me. Olympiacos knocking us out, like that has, yeah.
I
That is the
literally
one thing I
have
look at Mikel, I'm like, that is not good enough.
I have
Genuinely not good enough.
trauma from the Olympiacos one. Like, I just that whole day just felt like a really bad nightmare. I see a lot of people in the chat are, talking about the report that just came out from Sport saying that Mikel Arteta has informed his entourage that he is leaving Arsenal at the end of the season. Um, Listen, I don't until Ornstein or somebody confirms it. I don't think we should spend too much time on it. Um,
But also, what is this like announcement weekend? What's going on? Like,
I
Klopp,
don't
Xavi,
know.
everyone, like, I don't know. I mean, the thing about Arteta, Turkish said something the other day that I
Mhm.
do agree with. Arteta does whatever people think. Arteta holds incredibly high standards for the club. Whether he's good enough and get things right is a fair question, but I do not question the standards he sets for the club and himself. And he did say that he wasn't sure whether he should stay on after the way they lost the Premier League, and he
Mhm.
didn't know whether he was like the right person. If Arsenal fall short again, Barcelona come knocking. I don't know. I I I
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's asking himself that question. I think he's going, "Let me really think about this." Like, Pep Guardiola, like, is this really, I don't know. I think he'd be having some serious conversations with himself.
yeah, I don't doubt that Arteta would have the serious conversations with himself. I think he does hold Arsenal to very, very high standards. But yeah, I know a lot of people are like, I know people want Arteta to go. This would be very convenient timing for a report like this to come out, but this could also just be Arteta contract talks, whatever. Who knows? But I would be very surprised if Arteta left I really would, you guys. I wouldn't take too much from that. Speaking about Barcelona, though, and Xavi, he also announces that he's leaving at the end of the season, which I'm just like, I don't know if you wanted the Klopp effect, but you weren't getting one, buddy.
Yeah,
They don't love you like
yeah.
that. They don't love you like that. Listen, did it
L
okay, has Xavi underperformed or overperformed at Barca in his time? Remember,
Right, so
he has won the La Liga,
yeah,
you
full
know.
disclosure, I am like such a surface level fan when it comes to football outside of the Premier League. And I've said this line a lot recently, like just on other shows. I really don't pretend to know more than I do, and then the things I do pretend to know more than, like I'll say it with chest, even if I'm wrong. Like, but with Barcelona and Xavi and his job there, I know at one point they were playing good football. They obviously won the league. They've largely underperformed in the Champions League, but I mean, this year they have come out of the groups, and now they're quite a way off top. But it's not completely dead in the water. Actually, after their defeat yesterday, maybe from a distance, I've looked at some of the business that Barca have done, and I'm like, I don't get it. And I did this video, I think summer of 2022. I was like, why are they like why are they signing these players? Why do they just sign Christensen? And I think I think he's done okay for them. I might be wrong, I don't know. Like, why are you signing Marco Alonso? What's going on? But then you hear that they're kind of having to be shrewd in the market. So I don't know. I don't know is the answer. As to right, so people saying he's massively overperformed. Okay, and he's got no say in transfer. That's what Nketiah's lawyer said.
Mhm.
I mean, if that's true, then fair enough. He's won a title. Like he's won a title. I mean, I can't be saying everything I'm saying about Arteta and then not acknowledge that Xavi has actually got them over the line.
Yeah.
So fair play on that. But yeah, it's gone wrong this year, and I don't know why. I've never looked at that Barca side and seen like balance. I think they lost the game the other day, and it might have been the El Clasico in the Super Cup, and I looked at their 11, and I think they had Sergio Roberto like left wing. Listen, I didn't watch the game; I just looked at the 11 on paper, and like I'm like that's strange. I I don't know. Let me put it this way: I'm not fancying a manager swap. Let's that's what I'd say for them. From the little I know, the job he's done out there. If it's a
I
case of,
don't
well,
want
Xavi's
Xavi.
leaving, we could get him and Barca get Arteta, I'm saying no to that personally.
It's crazy because, like, I mean, everybody would be like, "Well, just look, he won a trophy, he won this, he did whatever, whatever." I still feel like he's not as good of a manager as Arteta, and maybe that's just my bias speaking, but I'm definitely not I would not swap, like you said. I would not swap. I don't I think he's kind of like, he's had a lot of BS going on with the way that they run the club and stuff like that, but am I getting the feeling that Xavi is just like this great young manager and they're holding him back? No. Do I think he's done a good job kind of settling the ship and all this kind of stuff, and, he won something in the process? Yes. But, yeah, he's just it's almost like an Ollie type thing, I feel like, with him where he's
Oh, really?
overperformed, but he's still not good enough, if
I
that makes
mean,
sense.
there's a comment. I mean, following a lot of the comments, and Curtly says that Xavi's not over or underperformed. He's just performed. Barca don't have money
True.
like that to sign players. Now, Curtly, I'm not disagreeing. That might be true. I don't know. We all know they're very well documented financial issues, losing Messi and things that have gone on. But I, I just because money hasn't been spent doesn't mean a good squad hasn't been assembled in some way, shape, or form, whether that's
Mhm.
through him or whatever. Like you can't tell me that over the years where he has had Dembele, he's had Rafinha, he's had Lewandowski, he's had João Felix, he's got Gavi, Pedri. He had Busquets, I think, for a year. Okay, albeit an aging Busquets, but listen, I'm never questioning his quality. Like Araujo at centre back and others. Now, and I'm not saying that this is a perfect squad by any means, but like it's also there's some really good players there. Um, they just signed Gundogan off the back of the way they ended that season, Man City. So he signed Romeo to like come in and be the Busquets. Listen, I don't know the story around all that. I don't know, but like that seems like a big mistake. I don't know. I know very little genuinely about Xavi and Barcelona, how it's all gone. I'm just saying from a distance, I'm like, there are very talented players there. Like whether they've had the money to spend or not, like others, you don't go 3-2 up and
Yeah.
lose 5-3 with 10 minutes to go. And like some of the results they've had recently just don't look good enough.
Listen, I know that he's kinda damaged goods right now, and there's some bit comps going around of him not looking that great, but Frankie, if you're not feeling loved and,
Frankie, another one.
appreciated there, come to Arsenal, because I would gladly take you and stick you right at left center mid, and that
Yeah.
would solve a lot of our problems. That would
So
solve a lot of our problems.
do you
Go
like
ahead.
the Zubimendi links? I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but I think they would
Yeah.
play the midfield role similarly.
Yeah, well, there's 400 of you guys in here, so I don't know if you guys are, like, new or whatever. Make sure you guys subscribe and like the video and set notifications, but anybody that's been here for a while knows Zubimendi all the way for me. That's the signing for us. I feel like he's one of those types of players, like, what he does is not gonna show up on stats the way that people want it to. People are gonna think, "Oh, La Liga, that means he's weak," but he genuinely would balance out our midfield. He's just like a more modern version of Jorginho, and I feel like that's exactly what we need. People are like, "He's not a left center mid," and I'm like, "Well, he doesn't have to be." Like, the way that Declan Rice and him can play that position is one goes high, one dips back, like how Jorginho and Declan Rice played against Liverpool. It was fine, and it was the best I felt like our midfield looked all season.
I
We just
agree.
couldn't score a goal, you know?
I completely and utterly agree. And not that I want to be taking much inspiration from them not down the road, but their
Mhm,
fullbacks invert with Udogi getting and Pora getting like really high up the pitch, like almost beyond their midfield. Um, so there's no reason why you can't almost double pivot it with Zinni picking up those kind of higher spaces. Now, for anyone saying, yeah, why would Arteta do that? He did it with Tomiyasu away in Sevilla. Go watch that game. Rice didn't really move that much from the
mhm,
six. He did, like he did every now and again, but at times in possession, it was Tomiyasu who's making the kind of midfield breaking runs, and he's the one that runs off the ball for Partey's pass for the goal against City. So we've done that with our left back before. So
mhm.
I totally agree. Like more than ever, I see where a Zubimendi and a whole heap of sixes actually make sense at Arsenal, especially if you're not going to ever, ever sign the 8 we need. So
Arteta's like, "I'm not doing 8th."
he won't
I'm
do it. He's like, "You're a
no.
6 or a 10." Like,
Mm,
otherwise I won't I just will I fundamentally will not sign one. So,
he's
okay,
yeah. It has to
cool.
be by design because you cannot have had this many windows and just failed to sign one. There's no
You
way. It has to be by
you
design.
you cannot have been in the changing room with the Centurions for a whole 38 game season, and then the year after that as well, and watched Gundogan, De Bruyne, David Silva, Bernardo Silva plays in that role, Phil Foden, and gone, Trossard at 8. Like you can't. You can't.
Arteta is he's
This
crazy.
must be a part of a bigger plan that I don't get.
He
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. There
Or
has to be. And
yeah.
he wanted, I mean, reported he wanted Mason Mount. Don't know how that would have panned out for us. Ended up going for Kai. I don't know what's going on in Arteta's brain. It is what it is, but Zubimendi makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To me, it makes a lot of sense. It would allow Odegaard to do what he does best. It would balance out the midfield, solve the problems, give Declan Rice the right type of partner. He's come into a lot of criticism lately around
Yeah.
his progressive passing and not being as adventurous or creative from that sixth role as Thomas Partey. And I think it's all about having more than one progressive passer in there. I feel like a lot of the emphasis is on Rice to do a lot of shit. And if you just had one more guy in there, it would spread everything out, make sure that Odegaard didn't have to come deeper. It would solve a lot of problems. Like I still think he needs to improve on being more adventurous with his passing, but I feel like people have been a little harsh.
Mm.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I completely agree. I've not really seen a problem with his passing. Like, okay, is he dropping the shoulder, beating 3 men and threading it through the lines? Maybe not, um but like if we're having problems progressing the ball through our midfield, again, I'm looking more at what we haven't done at the number 8 more than our Declan Rice. Like,
Mhm.
this is what annoys me, Like, whatever you say, no footballer on the planet is perfect. Lionel Messi's as close to it, and I still wouldn't chuck him at centre back. Or actually, maybe I would. Maybe I would. Freak of nature. Like, my point is, and that's hyperbolic again because Rice as a midfielder is expected to progress the ball. But my point is, he does so much so well. Like, really, in the great analysis of what our team isn't doing well, Declan Rice is slightly not perfect progressive passing. Like, really the issue now. And sometimes I come and I champion the finer details. Like, sometimes it can be those little things that mean you're not cutting through midfield, that means our fluidity is kind of lacking. I hear it. But there are just so many other bigger problems. And where I get a bit frustrated with Arteta is I actually think Jorginho and Partey have that. Um, I do think they are both better passers than Rice. I think Rice is a very good passer, and those two are slightly better. And Rice, for me, is much more fitted to what Xhaka did last season. I think he could do that really well. So my thoughts on it are maybe there's something to it. But like, it just feels a little bit like, my house is on fire, but like, I haven't emptied the dishwasher yet. It's like, why don't we deal with the burning fire? Why don't we, well, that feels like it's more
That's
pressing.
perfect.
And
That's
then like I can tidy everything. I think there's a better analogy than that, but
but
you get what I'm trying to say.
yeah, because I feel like every week there's a player that we're focusing on as the only and main problem. It
Yeah.
jumps from player to player. Um, and then when it's not them, then we focus on something else. There's a bigger problem overall in the way that we're playing, and I don't necessarily feel like it's all about Declan Rice not being able to do exactly what Partey is doing, because again, if you wanted to just have Partey, then you just wouldn't have bought Declan Rice. There's a clear reason why Arteta wanted Declan, and sometimes I do think we should focus on what the players can do and less about what they can't do. Um, I had people on a stream the other day talking about Odegaard and saying, "Yeah, but he's lightweight and doesn't win his duels. He gets knocked around." I'm like, "He's a creative player, you guys. Like, listen, you know, if Odegaard's not able to thread the ball through or be creative or whatever, I could understand that, but it's like being upset because Jorginho can't, track back. We always focus on what the players can't do and not what they can. And I only would get mad at like Odegaard if he stopped being creative and stopped creating chances for us. But because he got beat in a duel by Ross Barkley is 2 times as big as him. What do you expect Odegaard to do? Like, I don't understand, but it's everything the player is not that we focus on, and Declan
Yeah.
is a lot.
It
He's a
goes
lot.
back. Well, it goes back to like getting the best of like managing resources, getting the best out of everything and everyone. Like that Jurgen Klopp side that regularly hit over 90 points, and bless him, only had one title to show for it. Firmino, like, he wasn't a great goal scorer. Like, they didn't talk about it. Now I get it because they're Mo Salah, but my point is like, not every player has to be perfect at everything. If you get that balance right elsewhere, okay, Firmino might not be a great example because he's a bloody brilliant player. I thought he was superb, Firmino. So let's look at Jordan Henderson. Like, he had limitations in his game, but my word, did he maximize? Trent for years can't really defend that well. This season's improved a lot in that area, but again, like, just got the best. And I know you might say, James, you're talking about the leader. You're talking about some generational talents here. You're talking about, I get it. My point is like, no player can really do everything. So if a player has done a lot of really great stuff, but has shown limitations over a prolonged period, I just expect us to reshuffle and reorganize in a way that gets the best out of their strengths. And I, I've said for a little while, I know we kind of disagree on this from our forever Arsenals and stuff, but I think Erdegaard is a kind of controlling midfielder. I think he's more style wise, and it's pure style wise for Liverpool fans get angry at me.
Here we go.
He's style wise more Thiago than he is De Bruyne. Style
Mm.
wise, style. I'm saying style, people.
Style people.
What I mean by that is get him in a midfield three, good close control, and he'll like keep us moving, keep us playing. I don't actually think he's a final third output machine, but last season he kind of was showing a lot of that.
Mhm.
So if Odegaard's kind of having games where he's like not he's struggling to have that kind of creative influence, like in terms of the final third or whatever, I'm again looking at the other left eight and going, they're not contributing anything. Like,
Yeah.
where's the trade off? Where's the balance? Where's the look? And I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses for everyone here. I just
No,
think
no,
everything's nuanced and it's balanced, and not
I agree
everything
with
is just one problem is the reason for all this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I've said it multiple times that I feel like if we had just signed the right player at that left 8 or that other midfielder, I think a lot of the way that we feel about Odegaard and Rice would go away because it's all about balance. There was a long period of time where people were like, "Well, Thomas Partey would be so much better if he wasn't with, a Xhaka and he had this person next to him because he's elite and he needs better people around them." And I agreed with that. And once we got the balance right, everybody looked amazing. Xhaka, you're getting the best out of him. You're getting the best out of Thomas. You're getting the best out of Odegaard. Now midfield's not balanced. Now we're looking at Declan like, why can't you do it all on your own? It's like he could never have done it all on his own. There's no player that can do it all on their own. So it needs to be figured out. But I did get a super chat, and I want to go ahead and read it out
Mm,
before we get out of here. Wad Kamo, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, "Give Arteta a chance until the end of the season and see." Um, we had kind of spoke about that, and I think both of us agree that until the end of the season, it's really hard to like be like, "Get out," because we don't know what's going to happen. And for people that are like, "Why aren't you guys talking about the big news?" It's because it's not really big news because it's already kind of been kiboshed, you guys. The Arteta leaving at the end of the season, there have been a couple of people that have said it's nonsense. And to be honest, sport is not that great of an outlet. So unless it's an Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano and he's doing a freaking interview, I would just say
yeah.
let's take that with a grain of salt. And I know people want him out, but it's sport. If sport said that we were getting messy, would you guys believe it? You know, they're not that great of an outlet,
Well, also, and all the people who've been really accurate, like Team News and Ticks, for example, a guy called Mo I talk about, they're all saying that it's just not true. So, and listen,
Yeah,
maybe they're wrong, but I'm relaxed on it personally.
same, 100%. All right,
Mm.
you guys, we are gonna get out of here. James, is there anything you have cooking, that you wanna let people know about,
Yeah,
your podcast and everything?
um, yeah, we're all out here making content. So if you're interested in it, go check it out. I talk more about other clubs on my channel. That is, I was about to say that. I mean, I'm going to be doing a little bit more Arsenal stuff as well, just like talking about the club in general. So you know, look out for that. But Jess, as always, like, thank you for having me. I genuinely always enjoy these chats. Like, they're, I really like the bigger picture chats, um, because I don't know. They kind of get you thinking about the club in a different way. Like football is so like news, reaction, result, reaction.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, let's just take a step back and like look at everything holistically. And I always enjoy it. I hope people have enjoyed it. And thanks for having me on as always. I genuinely really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. You always are like a favorite of everybody. That's why like the numbers are so big because they love you. Trust. I
Thank
know
you.
sometimes the chat can be a little bit yeah, but they're like that with me. Guys, there will
Thank
be a Canon Club tomorrow that'll come out. Me and Laura and Femi recorded that earlier today. It's a preview. So you guys are like, where's the Forest preview? Well, it's coming out tomorrow. Don't worry. I got you. I got you. And then on Wednesday, we're going to do a live Canon Club to do the post match for us. So make sure you guys are there for that. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, set notifications so you don't miss another show. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.